What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be talking about reports that Nick Caserio and Bill Belichick are absolutely feuding. We're going to get into all the specifics in today's video, but was N'Keal Harry the last straw that divided these two apart? All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, Nick. Well, reports surfaced this week that Nick Caserio and Bill Belichick may not be on the best of terms, as Nick Caserio has finally headed off and jetted off to Houston, Texas to take over the Texans as their new president of football operations and their general manager. We take a look at what he left behind in New England, and Bill Belichick, has always done things a certain way. He's known for quote unquote the Patriot Way, which has already come under fire from players like Tom Brady this week. We'll get to that at another time. But as of right now, it seems like there might be a report that Nick Caserio really had one final straw in New England. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Albert Breer, who's a reporter in the Boston area, met with Nick Caserio and interviewed him. After the interview was over, Albert Breer then posted on social media that a source told him that Bill Belichick went against his scouts when drafting wide receiver N'Keal Harry in 2019. After that, we learned of Chris Sims' experience with the Patriots in 2012 when he worked for the team. And when they drafted Jamie Collins and Chandler Jones in the same draft, Nick Caserio at that time also came out of the war room shaking his head in disbelief of the two picks because, again, Bill Belichick had gone against his scouts. This is something that Bill Belichick apparently has done on multiple occasions, something that Nick Caserio has had to endure for years on end. And I think that when you boil this down, N'Keal Harry was the final straw for Nick Caserio. After that happened, we saw the Houston Texans tampering with Nick Caserio, trying to pry him away from New England to make him their next general manager, in which the Patriots filed tampering charges against the Houston Texans, and then the Texans fully backed off of Nick Caserio, only for them to acquire him as their general manager this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, so let's take a look back, right? Because you just gave us a good synopsis, and I think we have to unpack it, especially for our viewers here. Talking about Chris Sims and his experience with the New England Patriots, we're talking about he's sitting outside the war room trying to figure out what's happening, where the Patriots are going. He's with the team, he's covering the team, he's doing a lot of things, and then all of a sudden he sees the door swing open and Nick Caserio's coming out shaking his head in his hands, and it's just kind of a little odd to see, especially on draft night. This should be an exciting time for teams. You're supposed to be getting the players that you want. You're supposed to be making, generational picks that are going to affect the team for many, many years. And it just seems like Nick Caserio and Bill Belichick were at odds dating back to 2012. And who knows if even before then, between then. I mean, what we're talking about 2012 and 2019. That's a long time in between to not have anything transpire. I think we should start with 2012. Listen, if Bill Belichick went against his scouts to draft Jamie Collins and Chandler Jones, then bravo to him because he made the absolute right call. Now the question is, who were the scouts trying to draft? Who were Nick Caserio and the scouts trying to tell Bill Belichick those are the guys you need to get instead of Chandler Jones, who is a perennial all-pro defensive end, and Jamie Collins, who has been a multiple time Pro Bowler with the New England Patriots, had multiple stints with the Patriots, and helped them win Super Bowls. So when I take a look at what Bill Belichick did, I say it worked out in the long run. But then you can point to 2019, and when this report came out that he went against his scouts and Nick Caserio once again to draft N'Keal Harry, now you say, ah, Bill Belichick knows defense, but he sure as hell can't pick out a wide receiver. And you know where I stand on N'Keal Harry. I can't stand him. I think he was overrated from the beginning. And the Patriots passed up major wide receivers that were left off in that draft. Marquise Hollywood Brown was the only one taken before N'Keal Harry at the end of the first round. They had AJ Brown, who ended up going to Tennessee, DK Metcalf, who went to the Seattle Seahawks. There were a plethora of other wide receivers that were drafted after N'Keal Harry that have been very productive for their NFL franchises. And I think that that might have been the final straw, because after that, that's when you saw the Houston Texans really come after Nick Caserio, really wanting to get after him, bring him in the loop. And he would have actually worked with Bill O'Brien at the time, because that's who their head coach was. Now they got rid of Bill O'Brien. They're trying to get out from under the mess that he got them into. Nick Caserio joins them 2 years later, and here we are trying to unpack what the hell happened between these two.
Well, also to add to this, aside from the draft itself, when you take the off seasons the Patriots have had over the last decade, they always go for guys they can get on cheap deals with high upside at a low risk. And that has always been their mantra of, we're going to get guys on value deals. We're not going to pay high-end prices for these guys. Nick Caserio left this offseason before free agency opened up and went to Houston Texans. As soon as free agency opened up, Bill Belichick and Nick Caserio were getting everybody they possibly could. The Houston Texans got over 16 players. The Patriots got over 12 players in free agency. And when you look at who they got, Bill Belichick spent the second most amount of guaranteed money in the last decade. Nick Caserio acquired all guys on value deals, low risk guys. He followed the way the Patriots have been grabbing players over the last decade or so, his time with the New England Patriots. So, has it been Nick Caserio grabbing those players for the Patriots at a cheap deal, hoping that Bill Belichick can turn them into the guys that he needs them to be? Or is it Bill Belichick doing it? Well, this is showing us right now that Bill Belichick has his own way of grabbing players in free agency. He can't just get bottom of the barrel guys with a little bit of upside and make them to be superstars. He needs guys who are on the brink of being there. Jonnu Smith and Matt Judon. These guys are on the brink of being there, and he's not afraid to spend a little extra to make sure he gets who he wants. Nick Caserio, on the other hand, is grabbing guys who are kick returners and punt returners and special teamers to turn them into the next top wide receiver, the next big linebacker. He's hoping to do that with those certain guys, and it doesn't always pan out, just like it hasn't always panned out for the Patriots. So now we're seeing these two different styles of management butt heads, and this also had to have been a conflict between the two while they were together in New England. Bill Belichick wants a certain style of player. Nick Caserio's not willing to budge on that player, and at the end of the day, it seems like Nick Caserio is winning in New England. Now Bill Belichick has full reins of who he wants, and he's getting exactly who he wants. Robert Kraft mentioned at the owners meeting that they are taking a new approach to this offseason. We've already seen it in free agency, and we're going to see a new approach when it comes to the draft. That will be the final straw and the final determination of whether it was Nick Caserio holding the Patriots back all along, and whether he's going to be the one holding the Houston Texans back in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I want to back up a couple paces here, because Robert Kraft made some pretty telltale accusations, if you will, during the owners' meetings and in some interviews that he's made recently, talking about the lack of ability of the Patriots in recent years to be able to draft, and some of the misses that they've had, and they've had to rely on free agent acquisitions, and it's really cost them. And I think you take a look at what he's talking about. N'Keal Harry's a big one. Sony Michel's another one. I mean, I can keep going on and on, but at the end of the day, Robert Kraft is right. And just like one of us, Robert Kraft really is a fan at heart. He loves to see this team succeed. That's why he bought the team when he did back in the late 90s. So when I take a look at what Robert Kraft is saying, he's coming from a fan's perspective. And what he's saying is that we've done great in free agency, and that's held us afloat for a little bit. but we got to get the draft right. And we have not been able to do that. I guess the last really great solid pick that we made was Jimmy Garoppolo, and that was in the second round. I mean, there really wasn't much else after that. You could say Isaiah Wynn, you could come up with Kyle Duggar in the second round. You can make points here and there, but the Patriots have consistently not nailed the draft year after year after year. And as a Patriots fan, I've even said that. I said, we struggle drafting players, we struggle to identify talent. Now, was it Nick Caserio that struggled to identify talent because he couldn't identify it with Chandler Jones or Jamie Collins? Or was it Bill Belichick who couldn't identify talent because he drafted N'Keal Harry over A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf? There's a lot of questions that we have to ask here, and a lot of questions we don't know the answers to. But it does seem like Nick Caserio is speaking outside the side of his mouth right now, saying one thing to Bill Belichick's face and, talking to reporters as quote unquote anonymous source, because it just seems too convenient that all this information is starting to come out as soon as Nick Caserio finally gets to go to Houston, and now we're talking about the draft, and there's just information being leaked that the Patriots did this and they went against scouts on this one. That it just seems all too convenient for it to not be Nick Caserio who's trying to cause a little stir in New England.
Yeah, it's very easy to say that it was Caserio because of the timing, but we'll never know for sure, and Albert Breer's never going to give up his source. So,
Rightfully so.
rightfully so, absolutely. But when we look at this upcoming draft, if you see Nick Caserio taking the very few picks that the Houston Texans have, move back in the draft to acquire more picks or acquire picks in future drafts, then that's exactly what the Patriots were doing all along. That means Nick Caserio was pulling the strings. If you see the New England Patriots now go ahead and move up in the draft, something that is completely different from what they've ever done, that's Bill Belichick doing what he wants to do. Bill Belichick clearly has a different style of managing than Nick Caserio, and it's clear and obvious now that these two have had issues in the past. And by the way, Nick Caserio is talking about Bill Belichick and pretty much being free with what he's saying. He doesn't care if it doesn't work out for him in Houston and he doesn't have a way back to New England. It seems like he never wants to be with Bill Belichick ever again.
Yeah, it seems like people who deal with Bill Belichick for a long period of time just don't seem to revisit that bridge all too often. Talking about not only Nick Caserio but Bill O'Brien, and don't forget Tom Brady. So there's plenty of people that we can point to here, but I do want to kind of end this on a little higher note. Bill Belichick has spent the second most amount of guaranteed money in the last decade in free agency, which was already a move we were not used to from the New England Patriots. I fully expect him to be fully invested in the quarterback market in this draft. I expect the Patriots to be big players for one of the top 5 guys. And I think it also comes to a necessity because the Houston Texans don't have draft picks. That's the hole that Bill O'Brien put them in. So it may make sense to actually trade back for Nick Caserio at this point to acquire more draft assets for the future, start building up the franchise for moving forward, because all the deals he signed were 1 year veteran minimum deals, really team friendly deals that are all going to be off the books by this time next year, and he's going to be able to start rebuilding next year. He couldn't do anything this year. The bed was made. They just got to lie in it at this point. I believe that with everything going on, we're not going to get a true answer this offseason, but take the next 2 to 3 years and really take a look, because that's exactly how it's going to play out. If Nick Caserio continues to sign veteran minimum deals, team friendly deals, and Bill Belichick is a go getter, continues to get top end guys that he thinks are going to help build a Super Bowl winning culture in New England, or rebuild the Super Bowl winning culture, look out, because it's going to be a firestorm heading Nick Caserio's way in Houston, and he's not going to be ready for it. All right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.